Alright guys, good morning. Here in Mazatlan, and I'm on a balcony of an apartment above a store. So it's Juan's uncle's plastic store, which I'll show you some of the interior right now. We're staying here for the night, and I'm leaving tonight on an airplane to go back to California. While I'm still with Juan, I wanted to do a little Q&A and answer some questions from viewers that have come up about how we got involved with this trip, how you might do something similar, motorcycle adventure trip. But let me try to get Juan. He's still in bed, even though it's like 9:30 a.m. But I'll show you a little bit around here, because it's kind of a crazy setup that we're doing. We're literally on top of the store. I'll show you. Oh, he's up. Okay, we're in the storage closet here. We couldn't really find anywhere else to do this video, but I wanted to, before I left, get a chance to talk to Juan and have a little video conversation about the preparations that we took to get started on a Mexico motorcycle trip, something that may help you as a viewer. Maybe you're thinking of doing some type of motorcycle trip like this, whether it's in Mexico or some other foreign country. A lot of people, I know people that do trips in Vietnam or other places that are kind of exotic, and this may apply to that also. So we wanted to kind of go through our checklist of what we did in preparing for this trip, and that it might help you. So first, the question I've gotten a lot is, why did we choose these little Italica motorcycles that you can buy in Mexico? Maybe you can tell them a little bit about Italica.
Well, it's a very good brand that you can buy very affordable motorcycles. Also, we have testified now that they're really good.
Yeah.
They're very durable, and we have take them to the maximum, I would say. And we can say that they're really good for riding, very comfortable, lightweight, and yeah, you can find easily spare parts all across the country.
Obviously, this isn't a commercial for Italica, which is the motorcycle brand we got, because there's other options out there. We just happen to have tried these Italicas because they're probably the most common in Mexico. You see them everywhere, and you also, kind of the bigger benefit was that there's service centers everywhere where they have the parts and everything. Get everything checked frequently, and it's very cheap to do that. It's like $30 or $40 every time we get it serviced, the bike serviced per person. So that's one of the reasons. So if you're looking at Mexico, you might look at that brand, Italica. If you're looking at somewhere else in another country, maybe look at their local market to what they have. But the trick is, I guess people are, well, how can you buy that in Mexico if I'm a U.S. citizen? Now, I do know, just by going into one of these stores, they sell them at a place called Electra, and we bought ours for like $1,300 or $1,400 each. And you can buy them as an American, but the trick is, and you won't be able to import them back to the U.S. most likely. So the idea would be to use them only in Mexico, and maybe even just use them for the trip that you're going to do, and then sell them. But the trick would be to register them. That's where Juan came in, and he helped me to do the registration, because I'm not sure if you can register them as a foreigner. Do you know?
To be honest, I don't know.
Yeah.
The real, you would have to check which is state legislation and see what's going on. Yeah.
I do know when I was in Tijuana talking to a guy at the store that sells them, he seemed to think, and he seemed to tell me that people from the U.S. buy these Italica bikes frequently, and they don't have a problem with registering. Maybe they can actually help you at the store to register, because they probably can act like a dealership where they send in the information and then get the license. But I'm not sure, but it's an option. The point is, if there's a will, there's a way. You can find somebody you might know in Mexico to help you out, that kind of thing. The other thing about Italica is that they're not flashy. Like a lot of people want to go in their big BMW motorcycles and be kind of fancy. We found that we don't want to draw attention to ourselves when we come into these towns. So the locals are all on these Italicas, like usually teenagers and stuff are riding around everywhere. The only thing, we look a little weird. I mean, because we come into town, we have a more protective gear than anybody else, because it's rare to even find people wearing helmets. Let alone the more protective gear we have, which is the gloves, the jackets, the boots, all that stuff. I do want to emphasize that people think, I think wrongly, that you have to have some kind of very high-end adventure motorcycle to do something like this, and that's completely not true. You can definitely get by and have pretty much the same experience. We've seen people along the route that are on much more expensive bikes. I mean, we're talking any kind of BMW motorcycle is going to cost at least $6,000, probably $8,000, $10,000. Whereas we bought these motorcycles for $1,300, and we're having essentially the same experience that these people are having. I find that they're very comfortable. He actually has. Tell him about your bike back home and what you think about the comparison.
Well, I recently bought a BMW 300, and it's a nice bike, but Italica, as Josh just mentioned it, it's just as fun.
Mm-hmm. And he was even saying that it's even a little bit more comfortable on the Italica because the BMW has a specific kind of riding style that's like the handlebars are pretty far up and it's kind of a funky way to sit. Whereas the Italica that we have, it's just like the perfect sitting position. Anyway, the point is, find yourself the bike that works for you. It doesn't have to be that particular brand. It can be anything, but it could be, the point is, it doesn't have to be an expensive motorcycle. Let me look at my notes, and I'll look for some other questions that other people have come up with. Do we have any safety concerns?
Well, we did. At the beginning of the trip, we were concerned about safety and, well, not only safety with the roads, but also safety with the, with safety, public safety, right?
Yeah. Well, everybody says, though, the cartels and the violence in Mexico, that kind of thing.
But I think, we took some precautions along the way. Mm-hmm. We have been perfectly fine. People advise you to be careful, of course. We are careful. But at the same time, we find it to be very tranquil, very quiet. If you don't engage in any criminal activity, you will be perfectly fine. And yeah, it's not as dangerous as they say, right?
Well, not even as dangerous. Not even half. It's not even 10% of what people have said.
Right.
In fact, we've gone to certain towns where the locals even will say, "Oh, you shouldn't go to the next town because it's dangerous." But what we really find out is a lot of these people locally don't even travel themselves to the town. They just hear something from a news story from 2 years ago, and they say it's dangerous. But we get there, and it's like, oh my goodness. It's like, if we would have listened to this person's advice about not going there, we wouldn't, like, the really beautiful towns with nice people and great food. So you have to take the regular precautions. But we found that it's perfectly safe. Don't believe everything you hear on the news. I think it's a lot of exaggerated, the criminal element. It's just like any other city that has kind of organized gangs or whatever, like LA or New York, they exist. And if you are, buying drugs from some guy in the worst parts of LA, you may expect to get involved in some criminal activity. But if you are in normal parts where people are going to go and maybe be tourists or whatever, and not going to be in that criminal element, you will not find any trouble whatsoever. You'll find the opposite, and that's like super nice people inviting you to go to their homes. We've had people inviting us to dinners, inviting us for tours of the town.
Breakfast.
Yeah. We had one, just a quick story, one town where a lot of people said it was dangerous. It was a tiny little fishing village called Puerto Libertad, Sonora. We got there and we're a little nervous because people have said this and that. And this guy pulls right up next to us on a motorcycle. Right when we get to the main town, we stop. And we're like, oh, maybe something's going on as far as we should be scared. But actually what happens is, like, oh, we have a little motorcycle group here in town. And the leader of our group wants to meet you because he saw you guys coming into town. Because it's such a small town, everybody sees everything. We ended up following the guy a couple blocks on his motorcycle. We follow him on ours. We get to the house, just a very modest, house. The guy has a bunch of workshops because he's doing work on his cars and motorcycles, and he has like a motorcycle vest on, like a motorcycle club, and ends up just being the nicest guy. Gives us a full tour of the town, invites us to come over for breakfast the next morning, makes this really gourmet breakfast. Amazing. Anyway, so if you're not open to that, if you're so scared of safety and you're not going to be open to these new experiences, then that's not going to happen for you. But if you are open-minded but having common sense as well, right? You're not going to be like, oh, come over. You can sense it. You can sense it with common sense. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Somebody had asked me recently about budget. What is the daily budget? Can you speak to that a bit?
Well, we are traveling very inexpensively.
Yeah.
Very mindfully. And what we do is we try to stay in very convenient locations like hotels. We try to eat in really good places which are inexpensive, where locals go. We just stop at a convenience store and we just get water or a quick bite that It's convenient because it saves us time and
Mhm.
money. And I think we are doing it the best way. But also sometimes we also spend a little bit more money
Right.
when it's worth it. Right?
Right.
So it really depends on where you are, the options we have, and but at the end of the day, I think the main idea that I have to point out is that the main goal is to enjoy the trip.
Right.
And yes, we are enjoying it, but that doesn't mean that we have to overspend money, right? So it's just a good combination of finding good spots where we can stay that are clean, that are good enough for us for what we need. Stay the night.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I'll give some specifics as far as dollar amounts. We probably spend no more than like $40 a day, and that's including lodging. So we'll probably have one big meal a day, and we'll go to like either a big taco stand or some type of meat. We'll get a big plate of meat or a fish or whatever. And maybe that's like 300 or 350 pesos for the two of us. And so that's, what is that, $15, $15 to $20 for two. So then we split it, and it's like $10 each. So that's sort of the big meal of the day. And then throughout the day, maybe we'll have, like he said, we'll stop at the convenience store. It's called OXXO mostly, kind of like a 7-Eleven. And we'll get maybe water, peanuts, something just to snack on. That'll cost us like $3 or $4. And then maybe in the morning, whatever, we might have a small meal with some coffee. That's maybe $10 or so for the two of us. We'll split that like $5 or $6 each. The lodging, we usually found lodging to be probably average 500 to 600 pesos, which is like $25 to $30 per night that we'll split. You get two double beds. We'll split that, so it's $15 each. So now what I've added up, 15 for the lodging, 10 or 12 for the bigger meal. This is per person. So that makes it like 27. Let's say another 5 or 6 during the day for smaller meals. Now we're up to like 32. And then gas every day. Every other day we're usually filling up gas, and we're probably spending $10 to $12 to fill up the entire tank. And that's even with these high gas prices. And so, because we'll usually put about $20, $22 of gas, but we'll split it, so that's like $12. So anyway, we're up to like $40 to $45 per day. That's everything included. So I think that's a great budget when you talk about a way to travel. And we're experiencing really awesome stuff. We're able to explore, because we have these motorcycles, we can explore on the back roads. We can go to the farms. Sometimes we'll stop at random places, like we stopped at this chicken farm just to check it out. So, but that's a free thing, right? So we're seeing all these things on a major small budget. All right, next question. It actually has to do with kind of the same topic, which is food and lodging. How do we pick those items?
Yes, same. We do a Google search in advance to look for the best places you can eat. We ask locals. That's the most important thing to do. I think that's common sense. We ask them where locals go. We also observe, take a look at the places where people are there,
Mm-hmm.
where it looks crowded, and that's where we go. And we just check it out and try to get what people eat,
Yeah, especially for the taco stands and stuff.
Yeah, like locals do.
Kind of looking for the more where a lot of people are congregating. And also just asking people. We'll be on the main street. We'll pull over. We'll see a couple people walking by. Even with my broken Spanish, I can ask, disculpe, ¿qué recomiendas por tacos locales? What do you recommend for the local tacos? And they'll say, oh, down this street, down that street. Obviously with Juan helping, he's fluent in Spanish, so he's talking to folks. And we kind of do the same with hotels, except a lot of times we'll just look at our Google Maps. Either when we get into town or maybe a couple of towns before we get there. We'll look at Google Maps, and they usually have prices right on there, and we'll call them. But we have been able to find in pretty much every town, probably our most expensive, if you go to some kind of really tourist town where you can't find small hotels, is maybe like 1,000 pesos, which would be $50. Split two ways is $25 each, but that's more rare. The more common is the 500 or 600 pesos per night, sometimes even 400 pesos a night. which is $20. And even like sometimes we're like, well, this is worth it. Like we paid 900 pesos the other day because it had a pool and it was really a nice location. So we went ahead and splurged and we paid that, which is $45 that we would split between the two of us. Final question I have, just in general, how do you prepare for such a trip, right? Any thoughts on that?
Well, we can only give you so much advice right now, but at the end of the day, it's you. If you want to experience something like this, it's going to be your own way of doing it, with your own likings, your own experiences, your own way of doing things. So I think you have to plan it for yourself, to your liking, to your timing, etc. This is how we have done it so far. It has worked for us, but we try to keep it simple.
Yeah.
And as I said, the main goal is to enjoy the trip, get to know the places, try to act respectfully with everyone.
That's true.
And enjoy the scenery, you know, and take it as it goes. You can only plan so much, but you will really experience it once you are there.
And I think that goes to a point of like safety and everything. You want to make sure you're acting kind of like a local, right? You don't want to come in like some kind of demanding tourist. You gotta, when in Rome, right? You want to do what they do. You go to their town. You be respectful. You talk to people respectfully, and I think it's really kind of a common sense thing that would be contributing to the success of the trip. And also, I mean, just to talk about general preparation, obviously you're making sure your motorcycle's in good shape, making sure your tires and your maintenance is done, making sure you've got the proper gear, clothing, protective gear, gloves, that kind of thing, helmet, gloves. But overall, just like Juan said, once you kind of accomplish the initial preparation, you're making sure you know your locations you're going to go to, the distances you're going to travel, the equipment you need, and the bikes. From that point, it's like, okay, there's nothing more you can prepare. You just have to do it because you're going to learn on the road. Things come up that you maybe didn't prepare for because you can't, and you just have to go with it. And guess what? You're still going to be fine, and you're going to have a great time. So the point is, you just got to get out there and do it. There's only so much preparation because you're gonna learn more by doing. So anyway, hope this was helpful for some of you. A little something different just because we have Juan, and I wanted to make sure he was introduced to the video a little more than he has been in the past. So I wanted to have a little discussion with him. So thanks for watching. Any final words, Juan?
Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy our trip experience.
Definitely. All right, we'll see you guys later. Feel free to write us some comments below, and we can try to answer those best we can. We probably didn't answer all the questions here.
Okay, the end of the road here.